Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, guys, it's felt like the Maple Leafs have used a different set of lines almost every single night for the last month or month and a half. And with the playoffs just less than 2 weeks away, people have been getting impatient. They want to see what this team is going to look like round one, game one of the playoffs, and I think Sheldon Keefe might have showed it to us during yesterday's practice. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, and we will get to everything, but I want to start with the defensive pairings first, because I feel like once we start talking about the forward lines, it's going to lead us into a broader conversation. Starting off with Jake McCabe and TJ Brodie, and I think it's quite clear what Sheldon Keefe is trying to do with that pairing, because last year against the Lightning in the playoffs, he used Jake Muzzin and TJ Brodie as the team's shutdown pair, and after Muzzin went down with his injury earlier on this season, there were a lot of calls from the fan base for the team to go out and get a similar defenseman, and they did in Jake McCabe. He plays a two-way style of game, he plays with a bit of a physical edge, and he's even got the same first name as Muzzin. And so far, when playing with TJ Brodie, they've controlled the majority of the shot attempts, the actual shots, the actual goals, the expected goals, the scoring opportunities, and the high danger shot attempt share in heavier defensive minutes. They've been excellent playing together all across the board. The next pairing being Mark Giordano and Justin Holl. Now, I know a lot of people give Justin Holl grief, but ever since the trade deadline, I've actually kind of liked his game. Before that March 3rd trade deadline, there was no defenseman on the Toronto Maple Leafs blue line that played more minutes up against the other team's top players. And that's not to say that Justin Holl's any good, but it is to say that maybe he was playing in a role that was a bit unfair. Because since then, he's played the third most minutes up against the other team's best players. He's playing in more of a secondary defensive role up against maybe the team's, second best defensive options. And I've really liked him in that role. And playing alongside Mark Giordano so far this season anyway, the duo has been able to control the majority of the shot attempts, the actual shots, the actual goals, the expected goals, the scoring opportunities, the high danger shot attempt share, and even heavier defensive zone starts than what Jake McCabe and TJ Brodie were getting. Which brings us to Morgan Rielly and Luke Schenn. And I'm going to separate Luke Schenn from this conversation really quick because that guy just got here. He's been in and out of the lineup, for different reasons. He had a kid. He's been a healthy scratch other times. The whole idea of going out and getting Jake McCabe and having basically shut down pair A and shut down pair B is that you didn't have to play Morgan Rielly in defensive minutes anymore. And ever since the trade deadline, the Maple Leafs really haven't been doing that. If we're looking at the context of the numbers that Rielly and Schenn have put up here, these are in heavy, sheltered offensive minutes. And Morgan Rielly should be the driving force there, and he just hasn't been over the last month or so. And if you want to look at Rielly's numbers away from Luke Schenn, they are better. But that's not to say that Luke Schenn is the problem, because when looking at his numbers while playing with Timothy Liljegren, they're even worse. They're only better when he's been playing with TJ Brodie in even heavier offensive zone minutes. And I'm not breaking up my number one shutdown pair because Morgan Rielly needs a babysitter while playing heavily sheltered offensive minutes. That's what he's supposed to be good at. So figure it out. There was about a month and a half stretch between like the middle of January, just before the trade deadline, where it really looked like Morgan Rielly was starting to turn a corner on his season, and he was putting up good results and playing well and starting to pick up some more points. He was scoring a couple of goals. He looked dangerous on the power play. And now it's kind of all gone out the window the last month or so. Figure it out. What I will say, because I don't want to just come off as angry and negative, is that I think that he can and will figure it out. I don't know. Is there an injury there that we don't know about? Something that's been nagging him all season long? I mean, it's possible. It's just that it was supposed to be a huge advantage to be able to play him in a sheltered offensive role and just be able to take advantage of something that he's been good at his entire career, and that's producing and driving offense. And so far, the Maple Leafs haven't benefited from it at all. Moving on to the forward lines here, I want to section off the top two lines and the bottom two lines because they clearly have different roles. I don't know if I really like the idea of taking both William Nylander and Mitch Marner away from Austin Matthews. I think you got to play at least one of those guys with him. But at the same time, if this is what the Maple Leafs need to do in order to have two successful scoring lines against the Tampa Bay Lightning, then that's what they need to do. And when Matthews isn't playing with at least one of Nylander or Marner, the trio that's had the most success or the best results, albeit in a small sample size, has been with Michael Bunting and Calle Jarnkrok. One thing that I'm really excited to see is how the Maple Leafs play using Austin Matthews, John Tavares, and Ryan O'Reilly all down the center of the ice. Because that's something that we didn't get a chance to see before Ryan O'Reilly ended up breaking his finger. It was John Tavares on the wing with Ryan O'Reilly in the middle and Mitch Marner on the other side. And that probably does make the top six better offensively anyway, but something that the Maple Leafs have to take advantage of is the fact that Ryan O'Reilly is one of the best shutdown defensive centers in the entire NHL. And people always like to say that the best offense is a really good defense. And the two can kind of play off of each other because now those top two lines with Michael Bunting, Austin Matthews, and Calle Jarnkrok, and then William Nylander, John Tavares, and Mitch Marner don't have to worry about playing as many defensive minutes when you got someone as good as Ryan O'Reilly there. And that's not to say that those guys won't play in any defensive situations, but it is to say that that line with Alex Kerfoot, Ryan O'Reilly, and Noel Acciari is going to free those guys up to do what they do best. And Acciari and Kerfoot even are no slouches defensively also. You know, for everybody who gets on the guy, Kerfoot's done basically everything well so far this season except for score. And for $3.5 million, you got to score. So I definitely do understand the gripe with him, but at the same time, in the right role, he could be very effective for this team. And that fourth line of Zach Aston Reese, David Kampf, and Sam Lafferty is sort of what that second defensive pairing is to the first one. It's shutdown line option B to the A line with Ryan O'Reilly on it, but the B team also features one of the better defensive centermen in the NHL in David Kampf. So it's no slouch either. And I mean, it's also got Zach Aston Reese on it, who received Selke votes just a couple of seasons ago. Of course, the lines are always subject to change throughout a game, but something I think that this lineup has going for it is the flexibility here. You know, you could always throw Ryan O'Reilly back up in that top six. You could put John Tavares on a line with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner like the Maple Leafs have done in the past. You could choose to reunite what was one of the best lines in the entire NHL just last year with Michael Bunting, Austin Matthews, and Mitch Marner. The point is that there are several different combinations that work, and that comes from just trying stuff. And that's what Sheldon Keefe has done over the last month or so. And when it comes to how they stack up against the Tampa Bay Lightning, there's a couple of different things that I want to talk about here because obviously the Tampa Bay Lightning have made it to the Stanley Cup Finals and they've been Stanley Cup champions twice in the last 3 seasons. They're a very good team still. They got Steven Stamkos, they got Braden Point, they got Nikita Kucherov. They're playing them all on the same line. And we still do have Andrei Vasilevsky, who, if I'm being honest, scares me the most out of anybody on this team. But what I will say is that if you're comparing the Tampa Bay Lightning from last season to this season, they're missing a couple of things. And that's Andre Palat, who scored 3 goals and 2 assists in that 7-game series. And they're also missing Ryan McDonagh. And Ryan McDonagh, to me, is the biggest part. In last year's playoff series, the Tampa Bay Lightning took Victor Hedman and Eric Chernak. They put them on the same pairing, and those two guys really locked things down for them. But even when those guys faltered a little bit, Ryan McDonagh was there to make sure that any secondary scoring didn't get through either, and they don't have that as an option this year. So it's very important that the Maple Leafs can roll 2, even 3 lines would be really nice that could string together some offense. Something else to consider is that while Victor Hedman is still generating a decent amount of offense, he has not been the same defensively so far this year. And I don't know if that's because of an injury, but the numbers are nowhere close from just looking at last season compared to this year. I don't know if he's just going to flick a switch and turn it on game 1. I mean, that'd be kind of impressive if he did. I don't know if it's an injury. I don't know if it's all the games that he's played over the last 3 or 4 years finally catching up to him. But this is not the same Tampa Bay Lightning team that we saw last season. In my mind, the biggest obstacle for the Maple Leafs in this playoff series is going to be staying out of the box and avoiding all of the after the whistle antics that the Lightning like to get into, because they want to throw you off your game. They don't want to play at 5-on-5. They'll gladly kill off the penalties if it means the refs are going to even up the calls and they're going to get more power play chances. This time last season, the biggest question mark for the Toronto Maple Leafs heading into the playoffs was their goaltending. You know, Jack Campbell had just returned from an injury that kept him out for about a month or two, and we really didn't know what to expect. And while I don't think that he cost the Maple Leafs that series against the Lightning, I also don't think he was much of a difference maker. He had a save percentage of under 900. But with the way that Samsonov has played so far this season, I got a little bit more confidence in him than I did Jack last year. I think that he could be a difference maker for them. In looking over the numbers from that series last season, the Maple Leafs actually outscored the Lightning 24 to 23 and outshot them 216 to 215. It could not have been any closer. And when you consider that the Lightning don't have Andre Palat, they don't have Ryan McDonagh, Victor Hedman's not looking like his usual self, and the Leafs do have Ryan O'Reilly this season, and they do have better goaltending. Look, last season I said that I didn't think that the Maple Leafs were going to beat the Lightning. I had actually said in my series preview video that I thought that the Lightning were going to beat the Leafs in 6. And the Leafs ended up pushing it to 7, but the biggest difference in that series was the goaltending. Andrei Vasilevsky was not very good through the first 4 games or so, but then flicked the switch and he was a Vezina candidate the rest of the way through, especially in that 7th game. I know that the Leafs didn't beat the Blue Jackets. I know that the Leafs didn't beat the Habs. I'm picking them to win this series. Sometimes I think we're guilty of overanalyzing things, you know, especially myself here on the channel. We're looking at the numbers, we're going over the matchups and the narratives. Sometimes it's just about being fun and dumb and finding ways to win. And I think that that's something that this year's Maple Leafs team has been really good at. And if you don't believe me, they've played 15 games so far this year with their 3rd and 4th string goalies. They've used 12 defensemen, excluding the 3 new guys that they got at this year's deadline, so 15 in total. Austin Matthews has been playing through an injury basically all season long, but has since come out and said that he feels a lot more like his usual self, and he does have 10 goals in his last 14 games to show for it. And yet, considering all of that, they've still found a way to be top 5 in the NHL in points percentage. They have better goaltending this year. They got Ryan O'Reilly. The team is looking healthy and trending in the right direction right now. The Lightning, they don't have Palat this year. They don't have Ryan McDonagh. Victor Hedman isn't looking so hot either. I don't know. There's something about this year that feels different to me. But that's going to be it for the video, guys. Make sure to like it if you did like it and subscribe for more because more is always on the way. I guess we'll find out in 2 or 3 weeks' time. But would be really nice if they could start tonight against the Boston Bruins. Would be a lot of fun if they could just go out there and kill them. Before I get out of here, I have a favor to ask of you. And I know that if you're still watching the video at this point, you're either asleep or a hardcore supporter of this channel. But either way, I appreciate you still. I had a conversation with my supervisor at TSN. I work for Sports Center, and that's hockey when I'm not making content here. And I had basically asked him, I said, you know, how can I maybe go about making content for you guys, whether it be on TV or the web or radio? You know, I want to do what I do on YouTube, but for you guys. And I had him as a professor in college, so he knows all about what we do here. And he said, well, you can make a demo tape, put something together, which I have, and it should be live on the channel by the time you're watching this. And he said that he would pass it up the chain. And if they liked what they saw, then maybe we could make something work. And I feel awkward asking, but at the same time, if you've enjoyed this channel for any period of time now, it would mean a lot to me if you could go over and check out that video and maybe leave like a review or like a nice comment or anything like that. I'm not asking you to lie, but it would mean a lot to me. You know, you've helped me make this channel what it is right now, which is already amazing, but I want to make it even better. You know, I want to take this to new heights and do so much more. And if we're able to, then I will share the news with you when I can. And if not, um, at least we tried, right? So thank you, and I'll see you again in the next one.